7,000 years ago, humanity almost killed itself. The old records called it the Great Reckoning. It was a war so terrible that it burned entire continents. Oceans boiled. Cities turned to ash in seconds. Billions died. The survivors crawled out from underground shelters and looked at what they had done. They looked at the dead world around them, and they made a promise. Never again. It took centuries to rebuild. Humans planted trees where bombs had fallen. They built hospitals where weapons factories once stood. They turned their greatest minds away from destruction and toward healing. They learned to master their own anger, their own fear, their own darkness. Only then did they reach for the stars. When humanity finally traveled to other worlds, they did not come as conquerors. They came as friends. They shared their medicine freely. They taught farming techniques to struggling colonies. They built schools on distant planets. They asked for nothing in return except peace. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Other species had always expanded through war. They took what they wanted. They crushed the weak. But humans were different. Humans sat down with enemies and talked until they became friends. Humans adopted orphans from alien wars and raised them as their own children. Humans built bridges instead of walls. At first, the other species were suspicious. They waited for the trick. They waited for humanity to reveal its true nature and attack. But the attack never came. Decades passed, then centuries. Then, slowly, the galaxy began to trust humanity. Then they began to love humanity. Human diplomats ended wars that had lasted for generations. Human doctors cured plagues that had killed millions. Human teachers spread knowledge to the darkest corners of the galaxy. And slowly, very slowly, the galaxy forgot what humans truly were. They forgot the Great Reckoning. They forgot the weapons that could crack planets in half. They forgot the darkness that slept inside every human heart. They saw only the kindness, only the peace, only the gentle smiles. They made a terrible mistake. The Empire ruled 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. They were an ancient race of beings with hard shells and cold eyes. They had built their empire through blood and fear. They conquered world after world, enslaving the weak and destroying any who resisted. High Sovereign had ruled the empire for 200 years. He sat on a throne made from the bones of his enemies. He commanded fleets of warships that blocked out the stars. He had never known defeat. And he hated humanity. He hated their soft skin and their weak bodies. He hated their short lives. He hated the way other species looked at them with respect and admiration. Most of all, he hated their refusal to fight. War was the natural order. The strong conquered the weak. That was how it had always been. That was how it should always be. But humans rejected this truth. They called violence primitive. They called conquest barbaric. They were insulting everything he stood for. For years, his advisors had urged caution. Humanity had powerful allies. They had trading relationships with half the galaxy. An attack on Earth would unite everyone against the Empire. But noticed something interesting. Humanity had no warships. They had no weapons. Their entire defense force consisted of old patrol vessels meant to stop pirates and smugglers. They had not built a single weapon of war in 7,000 years. They were weak, they were defenseless, they were prey. "Begin planning the invasion," he told his generals. "We will take Earth within a year." But first, he wanted to test them. He wanted to see how humanity reacted to pain. He wanted to know if they would fight back or simply cry. He needed a target, something small, something undefended, something that would hurt. His scouts found the perfect place. On a small colony world called Elysium 7, far from Earth and far from help, there was a human facility called Harmony Station. It was an orphanage. It housed over 800 children, both human and alien, rescued from war zones across the galaxy. The facility was run by an old woman named Sister. She was 68 years old. She had gray hair and kind eyes and hands that had once performed surgery but now only offered comfort. She had spent 30 years caring for children that nobody else wanted. The children called her Grandmother Star. Sister woke early every morning. She walked through the hallways and checked on each sleeping child. She knew all their names. She knew their fears and their dreams. She knew which ones needed extra hugs and which ones needed space. She loved them all equally. That morning, she stopped by the room of a little girl named Lily. Lily was 6 years old. She had hair and big blue eyes and a laugh that could light up any room. She had been found alone in a destroyed city, the only survivor of an attack on her. Lily was holding hands with her best friend, a small alien boy named was a species with blue skin and large black eyes. His entire family had been killed by slavers. Lily and had become inseparable since the day they met. Sister smiled and pulled the blanket higher over both of them. She had no idea that scouts had been watching the station for weeks. She had no idea that 12 warships were already on their way. She had no idea that High Commander Al had been given simple orders: kill everyone and leave no witnesses. On Earth, people went about their normal lives. They worked and laughed and loved. They raised their children and cared for their elderly. They believed they were safe. They believed the galaxy was at peace. They had forgotten what they were capable of. Deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, past 17 security checkpoints that had not been opened in 7,000 years, there was a door. Behind that door was a vault. Inside that vault were weapons and ships and technologies so terrible that humanity had sealed them away in shame. The vault was guarded by a secret order. Generation after generation, they had passed down the knowledge of what lay inside. They had trained and prepared and prayed that the vault would never need to be opened. Admiral Helena Vance was the current guardian. She was 60 years old, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Her family had guarded the vault for 3,000 years. She knew every weapon inside. She knew what each one could do. Every night she had the same nightmare. She dreamed of the vault opening. She dreamed of humanity remembering its true nature. She dreamed of fire and death and destruction. Every morning, she woke up relieved that it was only a dream. On Elysium 7, Lily woke up and asked Sister what was for breakfast, yawned and stretched his thin blue arms. The sun rose over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was a beautiful morning. It was the last peaceful morning any of them would ever see. 12 warships dropped out of hyperspace and began their approach. High Commander Al looked at the small, defenseless station below and smiled. This would be easy. He had no idea what he was about to wake up. The warships circled Harmony Station like hungry wolves around a lamb. High Commander Al stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the small building below. It looked so fragile, so easy to destroy. He almost felt disappointed. He had hoped for at least some challenge. "Deploy the ground troops," he ordered. "I want this finished before lunch." 2,000 soldiers landed around the orphanage. They wore black armor and carried plasma rifles. Their eyes showed no mercy, no hesitation. They had done this many times before on many different worlds. Inside the orphanage, Sister heard the sound of ships landing. She looked out the window and saw the soldiers forming lines around the building. Her heart went cold. She had seen soldiers before. She had treated the survivors of their attacks. She knew what was coming. But she did not panic. She could not afford to panic. 847 children were depending on her. She moved quickly through the hallways, waking teachers and caregivers. "Get the children to the basement," she whispered. "Use the emergency tunnels. Go now." Then she did something that seemed crazy. She activated the communication system. Harmony Station had a direct quantum link to Earth. It was meant for sending letters and pictures. It was meant for letting the children talk to families who might adopt them. Sister turned it on and aimed the camera at herself. "This is Sister at Harmony Station on Elysium 7, she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We are under attack by forces. I am going outside to speak with them. Whatever happens, please remember us." She left the camera running. Then she walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped outside with her hands raised in peace. High Commander Al saw the old woman walking toward his soldiers. He laughed. Did she really think talking would save her? Did she really think they cared about peace? "Shoot her," he said casually. A soldier raised his rifle and fired. Sister fell to the ground without a sound. Her kind eyes stared at the sky, seeing nothing. On Earth, millions of people were watching through the quantum link. They saw the old woman fall. They saw her blood spread across the ground. They saw the soldiers step over her body and march into the orphanage. And then they saw something they would never forget. The children had not all made it to the tunnels. Many were still in the hallways when the soldiers broke through. Some were in their beds. Some were in the cafeteria eating breakfast. The soldiers did not care. Their orders were clear: no witnesses. Little Lily was hiding in a storage closet when they heard the screaming start. She held his hand tightly and tried not to cry, was shaking so hard that his blue skin had turned pale. "It will be okay," Lily whispered. "Someone will save us." But no one came. The soldiers searched every room. They looked under every bed. They opened every closet. They were thorough and efficient and completely without mercy. In the medical wing, a group of teenage boys blocked a doorway. Behind them were 30 younger children. The boys had no weapons. They had only chairs and pieces of broken furniture. "You will not touch them," said the oldest boy. He was 17. His name was. He had been found in a burned-out spaceship when he was 3 years old. The soldier looked at him for a moment. Then he raised his rifle and fired. The other boys screamed and charged forward with their makeshift weapons. The soldiers cut them down in seconds. Then they walked over the bodies and went after the children behind them. On Earth, people were screaming at their screens. They were crying and begging for someone to help. But Elysium 7 was too far away. No ship could reach it in time. All they could do was watch. Lily heard the soldiers getting closer. The footsteps were heavy on the floor. Voices spoke in that harsh, clicking language. The closet door opened. A soldier looked down at the 2 small children huddled in the corner. The human girl and the alien boy, holding hands, tears running down their faces. He raised his rifle. Lily did something that no one expected. She stood up and pushed behind her. She spread her arms wide, making herself as big as possible. "No," she said. Her voice was tiny but fierce. "Leave him alone." She was 6 years old. She weighed 40 pounds. She had no chance at all. But she stood her ground anyway. The soldier hesitated for just a moment. Even his cold heart felt something strange at the sight of this tiny human protecting her friend with nothing but her own body. Then he remembered his orders. The gun fired twice. On Earth, billions of people watched Lily fall. They watched collapse beside her. They watched their small hands still reaching for each other. Something broke inside humanity that day. Something that had been sleeping for 7,000 years began to wake up. The attack lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, 847 children lay dead. Teachers, caregivers, doctors, all dead. Sister's body still lay where it had fallen, her arms still reaching out in peace. High Commander Al ordered his ships to withdraw. The mission was complete. He sent a brief message to High Sovereign: target eliminated, no survivors. He expected praise. He expected promotion. He expected his emperor to be pleased. He had no idea what he had done. On Earth, the quantum link finally went dark. Billions of people sat in silence, staring at black screens. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The whole planet seemed to hold its breath. High Sovereign received the news and smiled. The humans would cry and mourn for a while. Then they would accept their place in the galaxy. They would learn that they were their masters. He waited for Earth to respond. He waited for the crying and the begging and the desperate pleas for peace. Instead, he got silence. For 3 days, Earth did not respond to any messages. No broadcasts, no communications, no ships entered or left the solar system. It was as if the entire planet had simply stopped. Allied species sent worried messages. They offered condolences. They offered support. They got nothing back. Began to feel something strange. It was an emotion he had not felt in 200 years. It was fear. His advisors told him not to worry. Humans were pacifists. They had no weapons. What could they possibly do? But could not shake the feeling that something was very wrong. On the third day, deep beneath the ice of Antarctica, Admiral Helena Vance stood before the Vault of Remembrance. The United Earth Council had voted. Every single representative had said the same word. Yes. For the first time in 7,000 years, the vault would open. Helena placed her hand on the scanner. Her DNA was confirmed. Her voice print was confirmed. Her retinal scan was confirmed. 17 locks disengaged one by one. The massive door began to open. Cold air rushed out, carrying the smell of ancient machinery and forgotten death. Helena looked into the darkness beyond. She saw the shapes of weapons that could destroy suns. She saw ships that could crack planets in half. She saw the terrible legacy of a species that had almost annihilated itself. Tears ran down her face. "God forgive us," she whispered. "We remember how to be monsters." Behind her, a single screen showed the final image from Harmony Station. 2 children lying on the floor of a storage closet, a human girl and an alien boy, their hands still reaching for each other. Helena looked at that image for a long time. Then she stepped into the vault and began to wake the sleeping giant. The vault was enormous. It stretched for miles beneath the Antarctic ice. Rows and rows of sealed containers disappeared into the darkness. Each container held something terrible. Each container held a piece of humanity's forgotten past. Admiral Helena Vance walked slowly through the massive chamber. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. Emergency lights flickered on as she passed, revealing shapes that had not seen light in 7,000 years. Ships hung from the ceiling like sleeping dragons. They were black as night, built from materials that seemed to absorb light itself. Their designs were cruel and elegant. They had been created for one purpose only: destruction. Helena stopped before the largest ship. It was called the Nemesis. It had been built during the last days of the Great Reckoning, when humanity was fighting for survival against itself. It could destroy an entire fleet without taking a single scratch. It had never been used. The war had ended before it could fly. Now it would finally wake up. All across Earth, something strange was happening. People were stopping in the middle of their normal lives. They would pause, their eyes going distant, as if they were listening to a voice that only they could hear. This was the Remembrance Protocol. 7,000 years ago, when humanity had sealed away its weapons, they had also sealed away the knowledge of how to use them. This knowledge was hidden in human DNA itself, passed down through generations, waiting to be activated. The Council had activated it. A farmer in China put down his tools and started walking. A doctor in Brazil left her hospital without a word. A teacher in Nigeria dismissed his class and headed for the nearest transport station. They did not know why they were moving. They only knew that they were needed. Within hours, millions of people were converging on hidden facilities around the world. They were engineers and scientists and soldiers. Their families had kept the old secrets alive for 7,000 years, waiting for this day. They prayed it would never come. Now it had. In the vault, Helena activated the main control system. Screens flickered to life, showing data that had not been accessed since the Great Reckoning. Weapons systems, ship specifications, battle strategies, everything humanity had tried so hard to forget. Her second-in-command, Captain David Torres, stood beside her. He was a large man with gentle eyes and hands that had delivered bobbies and comforted the dying. He had spent his life as a healer. Now he was looking at weapons that could end civilizations. "I never believed this day would come," he said quietly. Helena nodded. "None of us did. That was the point. We wanted so badly to believe that we had changed, that we had become something better." Have we? Helena thought about that question. She thought about 7,000 years of peace. She thought about the hospitals and schools and orphanages that humanity had built across the galaxy. She thought about Lily and dying in each other's arms. "We were better," she said finally. "We chose to be better, and they punished us for it." She turned to face the assembled officers who had gathered in the vault. They were the guardians of humanity's darkest secrets. They were doctors and teachers and farmers who had lived normal lives while keeping ancient knowledge alive. "Today we remember," Helena said. "Today we become what we used to be. Not because we want to, not because we enjoy it, but because innocent children were murdered and we cannot let that stand." She activated the main systems. "Wake them all." Across the planet, hidden shipyards began to open. Mountains split apart to reveal launch bays. Ocean floors rose up, bringing ancient factories back to the surface. Underground cities that had been sleeping for 7,000 years hummed back to life. The scale was unimaginable. Humanity had not just hidden a few weapons. They had hidden an entire war machine. They had built enough ships to conquer the galaxy 10 times over, and then they had sealed it all away because they were ashamed of what they were. Now that shame was replaced by cold, focused rage. The first ships launched within 72 hours. They were small scouts, designed to be fast and invisible. They slipped out of the solar system and began mapping positions. High Sovereign still had no idea what was coming. He was preparing his invasion fleet. 500 warships, the largest force the Empire had ever assembled. They would jump to Earth's solar system and demand unconditional surrender. If the humans refused, they would burn the planet to ash. His advisors were confident. Earth had no defenses, no weapons, no military of any kind. It would be the easiest conquest in the history of the Empire. But strange reports were coming in from the border regions. Patrols were disappearing without a trace. Sensor stations were going offline. Something was moving through space, something that could not be seen or tracked. "It is nothing," insisted. "Technical problems, equipment failures. Humans do not have ships capable of such things." He was wrong. In the vault, Helena watched the reports coming in from her scouts. They had no idea they were being watched. They had no idea that every ship movement, every communication, every strategic detail was being recorded and analyzed. Humanity had 7,000 years to think about war without actually fighting one. They had studied strategy and tactics and psychology. They had theorized about weapons and defenses and techniques. They had done everything except actually use them. Now they had a complete picture of the military. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every fear. Captain Torres approached with a data pad. "The fleet is almost ready," he said. "We can launch within 48 hours." Helena nodded. "What about the Prometheus protocols?" Torres hesitated. The Prometheus protocols were the most secret weapons in the vault. They were not ships or bombs or guns. They were something far worse. They were methods of psychological warfare so effective that they had been banned even during the Great Reckoning. "Are you sure we want to use them?" he asked. Helena thought about Lily standing in front of, spreading her arms to protect her friend. She thought about Sister walking out to meet her killers with her hands raised in peace. "They killed our children," Helena said. "They killed children who were not even human simply because we loved them. They thought our kindness was weakness. They thought our mercy meant we could not fight." She looked at the screens showing the gathering fleet. Black ships, hundreds of them, each one a nightmare made real. We will show them what mercy really costs. We will show them what happens when humanity stops being kind. Tors swallowed hard. They will be terrified. Yes, Helena said. That is the point. I do not want to destroy the Empire. I want to break it so completely that no one in the galaxy will ever think about attacking our children again. She activated the final launch sequence. Send the message to all ships. We launch in 12 hours. Our first target is the invasion fleet. We will meet them in our own solar system. She paused. And tell them to bring the psychological warfare packages. I want them to understand exactly who they awakened. Across Earth, the final preparations were made. Ships loaded weapons that had not been fired in 7,000 years. Soldiers put on armor that their ancestors had worn during the darkest days of humanity's history. Families said goodbye, not knowing if they would see each other again. But there was no fear. There was only cold, focused determination. For 7,000 years, humanity had been the kind neighbor, the helpful friend, the peaceful trader. Now they would remind the galaxy why they had chosen peace in the first place. Because the alternative was too terrible to imagine. The Nemesis fleet launched at midnight. 500 ships, each one a masterpiece of destruction, slipped out of Earth's atmosphere and headed for the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect silence. Their black hulls were invisible against the void of space. Their engines produced no heat signature. They did not exist on any scanner. They were ghosts. They were nightmares. They were humanity's true face, finally revealed after 7,000 years of hiding. And they were very, very angry. The invasion fleet jumped into Earth's solar system with absolute confidence. 500 warships, the pride of the Empire, emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. High Sovereign himself commanded the flagship, eager to witness humanity's final humiliation. Scan for defenses, he ordered. His sensor officers looked confused. My lord, the scanners are not detecting anything. No ships, no weapons, no orbital stations. Smiled, as expected. The humans are cowering on their planet, waiting to beg for mercy. He leaned forward on his throne. Open a channel to Earth. I want them to see who their new master is. The channel opened. Prepared his speech of conquest, the words he had practiced for months. He never got to say them. Welcome to our solar system, a calm female voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once. My name is Admiral Helena Vance of the United Earth Defense Force. Laughed, Defense Force. You have no ships, you have no weapons, you have nothing but words. We know, Helena replied. We got rid of them 7,000 years ago. We thought we would never need them again. There was a pause. We were wrong. The space around the fleet suddenly came alive with lights. Ships appeared from nothing, hundreds of them, black as the void itself. They had been there all along, invisible to every scanner and every sensor. They had surrounded the invasion fleet completely. Felt his blood run cold. These ships were nothing like any vessel he had ever seen. They were wrong somehow. They looked like they had been designed by something that understood fear and had decided to wear it as a skin. What is this? He whispered. This is what we used to be, Helena said. This is what we sealed away because we were ashamed. This is what we hoped we would never become again. Another pause. You killed 847 children. You thought we were weak because we chose peace. You were wrong. The Nemesis, the largest ship in the human fleet, moved forward. It was 3 times the size of any warship. Its hull seemed to drink in light, leaving only darkness behind. This is the Nemesis, Helena continued. It was built during our last great war. It has never been used in combat. We sealed it away because we thought we had evolved beyond such things. The ship's weapons powered up. Even from miles away, Sensors detected energy levels that should have been impossible. Today, it finally gets to fly. Screamed orders at his officers. All ships attack formation, fire everything at that vessel. 500 warships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets filled with plasma bolts and missiles and particle beams. It was the largest display of firepower in the history of the Empire. The Nemesis did not even slow down. The weapon struck its hull and simply vanished, absorbed, eaten. The ship was designed to be hit by weapons just like these. It had been built to fight an enemy far more dangerous than the. It had been built to fight other humans. The never had a chance. The battle lasted 11 minutes, not because the humans needed that long to win, but because they wanted to understand exactly how helpless they were. Human ships danced through the formation like ghosts. They appeared behind vessels and destroyed them before anyone could react. They targeted engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. They did not waste a single shot. They tried to run. They tried to jump back to hyperspace, but the human ships had deployed something called a gravity anchor. No ship could leave the solar system without human permission. They were trapped, they were helpless, they were prey. One by one, the warships went dark. Their weapons failed. Their engines died. Their life support systems flickered and went out. The human ships were not just destroying them. They were dismantling them piece by piece, system by system. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. Watched his fleet die around him. He watched ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds crumble like paper. He watched his officers scream and panic and beg for mercy. Finally, only his flagship remained. It drifted in space, surrounded by the wreckage of 500 warships. Every system was offline. The bridge was lit only by emergency lights. The Nemesis moved closer. It filled blocking out the stars. "High Sovereign," Helena's voice said, "you are now a prisoner of the United Earth government. Your invasion has failed. Your fleet is destroyed. Your empire is about to fall." Tried to speak. His mouth moved, but no words came out. "We are broadcasting this on every channel in the galaxy," Helena continued. "Every species will see what happened here today. Every species will know what happens when you attack humanity's children." The changed. It showed the final image from Harmony Station. Lily and lying in each other's arms. "These are the children you killed. Remember their faces. You will be seeing them again." What followed was not a war, it was a reckoning. Human fleets appeared throughout space without warning. They did not attack cities or kill civilians. They were far more surgical than that. They targeted military bases and weapons factories and command centers. They appeared in throne rooms and government buildings and took leaders prisoner. The psychological warfare was worse than the actual fighting. Human ships would appear above a world and simply wait. They would not fire a single shot. They would just hang there in the sky, impossible to track, impossible to fight, impossible to escape. And then the broadcasts would begin. Every screen on the planet would show the video from Harmony Station. Every speaker would play the sound of children screaming. Every mind would be forced to understand exactly what the Empire had done. The message was always the same. Your leaders murdered children. Your leaders started a war they could not win. Your leaders brought this upon you. If you want peace, remove them from power. Worlds began surrendering without a single shot being fired. Generals turned on their commanders. Soldiers refused to fight. The Empire was not just being defeated. It was being torn apart from the inside. The humans understood psychology better than any species in the galaxy. They had spent 7,000 years studying peace. They knew exactly how to create war. Within 3 weeks, the Empire had collapsed, not conquered, not occupied, simply dissolved. Every enslaved species was freed. Every conquered world was liberated. Every war criminal was captured and held for trial. Helena watched from the bridge of the Nemesis as the last battle group surrendered without firing a shot. Her officers were celebrating around her, but she felt no joy. "Is this what victory feels like?" Captain Torres asked her quietly. "No," Helena replied. "This is what being a monster feels like. We are very good at it. That is why we stopped." She looked at the screens showing the freed planets, the liberated peoples, the crumbling remains of an empire built on blood. "We did terrible things during the Great Reckoning. We used these same techniques against ourselves. We learned exactly how to break a civilization, and then we buried that knowledge because we never wanted to use it again." She closed her eyes. "They made us remember. They made us become what we used to be, and now the whole galaxy has seen what we are capable of." Torres put his hand on her shoulder. "We saved billions of lives. We freed dozens of species. We stopped an empire that had caused suffering for." "I know," Helena said, "and I also know that every species in the galaxy is now afraid of us. They saw what we did to the. They know we could do the same to them." She opened her eyes and looked at the stars. "We wanted them to respect us. We wanted them to trust us. Now they will only fear us. That is the price we paid for justice." She straightened her shoulders. "Set course for the. I have a message to deliver to High Sovereign." The Nemesis turned and headed into the darkness, leaving behind the wreckage of an empire and the shattered remains of 7,000 years of peace. Admiral Helena Vance walked into the throne room of the Empire alone. She wore no armor. She carried no visible weapons. Her silver hair was pulled back and her face showed no emotion. High Sovereign sat on his throne, surrounded by his elite guards. These were the finest warriors in the Empire. They had fought in 100 campaigns. They had never known defeat. Until now. The guards raised their weapons as Helena approached. She did not slow down. She did not even look at them. "Kill her," commanded. The guards did not move. Helena stopped at the base of the throne and looked up at the creature, who had ordered the death of 847 children. "Your guards have seen what we did to your fleet," she said calmly. "They have seen what we did to your empire. They know that if they fire at me, every member of their families will be dead within the hour. We know where they live. We know their names. We know everything." She smiled, and there was no warmth in it. "This is what you woke up. This is who we used to be. Are you proud of yourself?" Gripped the arms of his throne. His hard shell was cracked. His cold eyes showed something they had never shown before, pure terror. "What do you want?" he whispered. "I will give you anything, resources, planets. I will surrender completely. Just tell me what you want." Helena shook her head slowly. "You think this is a negotiation. It is not. Your empire is already gone. Your fleet is destroyed. Your generals have surrendered. There is nothing left to bargain with." She pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A holographic image appeared between them. 847 names scrolling slowly. Human names. Alien names. The names of children who had done nothing wrong except exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. "These are the children you killed," Helena said. "You will learn every single name. You will memorize them. You will speak them aloud every morning when you wake up and every night before you sleep." Stared at the scrolling names. "For how long?" "For the rest of your life." Helena stepped closer. "Death would be too easy for you, too quick, too clean. You will live a very long time. And every day you will remember what you did. Every day you will remember that your cruelty destroyed everything you built." She leaned in close. "When your people ask why their empire fell, you will tell them the truth. You will say, 'I attacked an orphanage and the humans remembered how to be monsters.'" Was shaking now. His entire body trembled. "The galaxy feared us once," Helena said. "We made them forget. We became healers and teachers and builders. We thought we could bury our past. We thought we could become something better." She straightened up. "We were better, For 7,000 years we were better, and then you forced us to remember. That is your legacy, not conquest, not glory, just the simple, terrible fact that you woke up something that should have stayed asleep." She turned and walked toward the door. "Guards, take him to his cell. His lessons begin tomorrow." The elite warriors of the Empire hesitated for only a moment. Then they moved forward and took their former leader by the arms. Did not resist. He was too broken to resist. Over the following months, humanity rebuilt what they had destroyed. They freed the enslaved species. They healed the wounded worlds. They established a new order called the Covenant of Harmony, named for the orphanage where it had all begun. But things were different now. Every species in the galaxy looked at humans differently. They still saw the kind smiles and the gentle hands. They still saw the healers and the teachers. But now they also saw the shadow behind the kindness, the darkness that slept beneath the surface. They saw what humans could become if pushed too far. On the site where Harmony Station had stood, a memorial was built. 847 names were carved into white marble, arranged in a circle around a central statue. The statue showed Sister, her arms spread wide in welcome, her face showing only love. At the base of the statue, a single inscription was carved. "They taught us peace. We forgot for 7,000 years how to make war. When evil forced us to remember, we remembered for them. We carry this burden so the innocent never must." Admiral Helena Vance visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the attack. She would walk among the flowers that children from across the galaxy had planted. She would read every name. She would remember every face from the video. And she would weep. Not for the children. They were at peace now wherever they were. She wept for humanity. She wept because they had been forced to become what they used to be. She wept because they had discovered that their old darkness still fit perfectly, like a coat they had never really thrown away. Captain Torres found her there one evening, sitting among the flowers as the sun set. "The council is asking about the vault," he said quietly. "They want to know if we should seal it again." Helena was silent for a long moment. "And what do you think?" Torres sat down beside her. "I think we should. We did what we had to do. Now we should go back to being who we want to be." Helena nodded slowly. "We will seal the vault. We will return to peace. We will rebuild everything we were before." She paused. "But everyone will know it exists now. Everyone will know what sleeps inside. That is the difference. Before, they thought we were incapable of violence. Now they know we are simply choosing not to use it." She looked at the statue of Sister. "Maybe that is better. Maybe peace means more when everyone knows it is a choice." The Vault of Remembrance was sealed 1 year after the fall of the Empire. The weapons were put back to sleep. The ships were returned to their hangars. The terrible knowledge was locked away once more. But this time there was no secrecy. Every species in the galaxy knew about the vault. They knew what was inside. They knew that if they ever threatened humanity's children again, the vault would open. Peace is more powerful when it is chosen by someone who could easily choose war. 300 years later, a young student sat in a university classroom on a rebuilt world. Her professor was human, an old woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. The student raised her hand. "Professor, I have been studying the history of the Empire's fall. I understand why your people fought back, but I do not understand why you showed mercy afterward. After what we did to those children, you could have destroyed us completely. Why did you not?" The professor smiled. It was a warm smile full of kindness and patience. "Because monsters can always become monsters again," she said. "We proved that. When your people attacked that orphanage, we became exactly what we used to be. We remembered every terrible thing we had ever learned about war and destruction. We used all of it." She paused. "But winning a war is easy. The hard thing, the brave thing, is what comes after. Anyone can destroy. Creating is harder. Forgiving is harder. Choosing to be kind when you have every reason to be cruel, that is the hardest thing of all. The student nodded slowly. So you chose to rebuild instead of destroy. Yes, we chose to be better than what we had been. That is what makes us human, not our capacity for violence, though we have plenty of that. What makes us human is our ability to look at our own darkness and decide to walk toward the light instead. The professor stood and walked to the window. Outside, children were playing in a garden. Human children and children, running and laughing together. The universe had moved on. New generations had grown up in peace. But do understand something, the professor said quietly. We made that choice once. We could make a different choice tomorrow. She turned back to the student. For just a moment, the student saw something flicker behind those kind eyes. Something ancient, something terrifying, something that remembered exactly how to destroy civilizations. So pray that no one ever forces us to make that choice again. The student shivered. She understood now. Humans were not peaceful because they were weak. They were peaceful because they knew exactly what they were capable of, and they had decided to be something better. But the capability was still there. It would always be there. Sleeping, waiting, hopping, it would never be needed again. On a small moon in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a statue stood in a garden of flowers. 847 names were carved in white marble. Children visited every year to plant new flowers and read the names and remember what had been lost. And on Earth, deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the vault remained sealed. The weapons slept. The ships dreamed. The darkness waited. It would wait forever if it could. But it would never forget how to wake up.